Hello and welcome to National Focus. I'm Darrell Titt. In the headlines, the Ministry of Health and the Ministry of Tourism work collaboratively to ensure that Dominica remains COVID-free as the borders are now opened. Chinese government is committed to assisting in upgrading of infrastructure in Dominica, and the Government Housing Loans Board continues to assist public officers. Details of the headline stories and more when we return. Welcome back. As Dominica opened its borders to welcome nationals returning home, the Ministry of Health and the Ministry of Tourism are working collaboratively to ensure that Dominica remains COVID-free. The country will be opening its borders in two phases, on July 15 for nationals and residents and August 7 for non-nationals. Numerous protocols have been put in place to ensure that those arriving in the country are checked thoroughly before they are cleared. On Wednesday, the Ministry of Health held a press briefing to inform the public of the steps which they should follow upon entry into the island. Minister for Tourism, International Transport and Maritime Initiative, Honorable Denise Charles, says people who are returning home should fill out an online questionnaire. Minister Charles spoke of some of the protocols which should be adhered to before entry into Dominica.
All travelers must submit a health questionnaire online at least 24 hours prior to arrival in Dominica. Visit dominicacovid19.dominica.gov for further information and to access the health questionnaire. Show the notification of clearance to travel on arrival. Submit a negative PCR test result recorded within 24 to 72 hours prior to arrival. Present both your PCR test results and notification clearance to travel upon arrival at Douglas Charles or Canfield Airport. Other protocols. Travelers are required to wear face masks at all times during the arrival process up to and including departure from the airport. Travelers must observe physical distancing guidelines. Travelers must practice good respiratory and personal sanitization.
Protocols are also in place for individuals leaving Dominica.
Vehicles will only be permitted to enter the air and seaport with the driver and person due to travel. Travelers must wear face masks at all times during the departure process until departure from airport. Travelers must observe physical distancing. Travelers should practice good respiratory and personal sanitization. Follow instructions of healthcare staff, officials, and security personnel.
The tourism minister says strict measures are in place at the ports of entry to ensure that the spread of COVID-19 is lessened. The sanitization of frequently used areas at the airports is one of the measures put in place.
DASPA will be undertaking more frequent cleaning of touch areas of the terminal after each flight. Hand washing and other sanitization stations have been installed at all ports of entry. Deep cleaning of the passenger terminal will be undertaken on a regular basis. Strict hygiene guidelines will be enforced for all in keeping with the Ministry of Health protocols.
Minister for Health, Wellness and New Health Investment, Honorable Dr. Irvin McIntyre, gave the specifics of some of the protocols implemented.
When you get off the plane, you should be wearing a mask at all times. This is the first protocol that must be observed by all travelers. You must be wearing a mask at all times. Secondly, you get to the automated sanitizing station. It's touchless, it's sensor, and you use to sanitize your hands. Thirdly, you get to the next station where a health assessment is being done. and that includes taking your temperature. At this point, your temperature can either be 99.8 and below or 99.8 and above. If it is 99.8 and below, then you proceed to the next station where we'll do the authentication of your PCR results, as well as the confirmation of your approval notice, because you would have gotten approval from filling out your questionnaire online. So by the time you get in, we know whether you're approved or you're partially approved. So we know exactly what's happening. And thirdly, we check your ID, which would be your travel document, most probably your passport.
If an individual has a temperature lower than 99.8, the next step will be at the primary screening site. A rapid test will be conducted at the primary screening site.
At this site also, issuance of alert cards. These are the cards that gives you the signs and symptoms of COVID. And your temperature is also on this particular card. So when you get to the primary screening site, the rapid test is done, the issuance of alert cards, which gives you the signs and symptoms of COVID, as well as your temperature, which is recorded on that particular card. If your rapid results are negative, then you can proceed to the next station, which is the immigration. And at immigration, all the different measures have been placed as regards to the screens to avoid the close contact and to maintain the physical distancing. And when you're cleared from immigration, then you proceed to customs. At customs, all the other public health and social measures will be adhered to. And when you're finally cleared from customs, you can leave via our taxi association, which has been certified, and they've all been trained to carry our travelers from the airport.
If a traveler's temperature is above 99.8, they will proceed to a secondary screening site.
And also, there are other reasons why you may have to proceed to the secondary screening site. The other reasons, besides a temperature above 99.8, would be entry with a positive PCR result. Dominicans coming home, even if you were to have a positive PCR result, you may use a charter, and we make allowances and we make arrangements for your entry into Dominica. Besides this, if you enter without a PCR result, yes, you proceed to the secondary screening site. If you have an invalid PCR result, you will proceed to the secondary screening site as well. If you're determined to be high risk, for example, if you worked in a hospital where there were COVID cases, regardless of you having a negative PCR, you will still proceed to the secondary screening site. Also, refusal to do a rapid test, you will proceed to the secondary screening site. And if you have a positive rapid test, you will also proceed to the secondary screening site.
The health minister informed of some of the measures and activities which will take place at the secondary screening site.
At the secondary screening site, a PCR test will be done. That means a swab will be taken. And if you have symptoms, then you are transported to a mandatory isolation, which can be done at Portsmouth or at our Dominica China Friendship Hospital. If you are asymptomatic, means you have no symptoms whatsoever, then we put you into mandatory quarantine. Whether it's mandatory quarantine or mandatory isolation, you have to wait until you get your PCR results before you are cleared. The intention is to have those results within 24 hours, which is what we have been doing. But in the event that it takes longer, you will not get out until your PCR results have come in and you have been cleared. Now, if you have been cleared, then you can proceed to home, where we have the primary healthcare system. So although your test is negative, we have our surveillance teams, part of the primary healthcare systems, which will be monitoring everyone in the community.
Minister McIntyre called for the continued cooperation of the public to adhere to the protocols put in place by the Ministry of Health to fight COVID-19 in Dominica. The Government Information Service was on site at the Douglas Charles Airport to witness some of the nationals and residents returning home. Octavia Prosper has more in this report.
Dominica recorded its first case of COVID-19 on March 22, 2020. In response to mitigating against the spread of this virus, government took a decision to close the ports of entry. On July 15, 2020, Dominica reopened its borders to national and residents under strict protocols which were implemented by the Ministry of Health. National epidemiologist Dr. Shaladin Ahmed explained the protocols that people traveling had to follow before and after arrival in Dominica.
We have the pre-arrival screening that require every passenger has to fill up a questionnaire, including uploading their PCR results. And once that is negative, once their symptoms are pretty much negative or insignificant, then they are allowed or approved. They meet the criteria. In that scenario, they come in and do the rapid test in here at the airport. If they are negative, they go through the immigration office and then go to their home.
Dr. Ahmed also described the setup at the airport and the different stages the arriving guests have to go through.
We have about 4 stations here. Station 1 starts with our temperature screening and the sanitization, and then Station 2, validation of the documentation. Then station initially was 3, but now that been eliminated, no more fee payments. So now we are in station where the medical screening that require to do our rapid test, and then station where you need to wait for your results. So that's 4 separate stations for our passengers, and as you can see, tents are up to give them much more comfortable environment. So once they come in, they deplane, they come to our stations, and then they proceed one by one, and we are hoping it will run smooth.
Persons who did not complete the polymerase chain reaction PCR test before traveling will be tested upon arrival.
Those who are not allowed, those who don't have the PCR test, they will be directed to another location where they will be tested for PCR and then will be transported to a government quarantine facility. So they will be staying there until we have the definitive results of their test, of their PCR tests.
He says a lot of emphasis was placed on the training of the staff for the reopening of the borders.
We have very rigorous training on this matter. We came several times at the airport. We went through our simulation exercise, and we also placed where things need to be in place.
Returning nationals and residents who are allowed to go home are encouraged to continue practicing good health hygiene.
I just want to emphasize, I take this opportunity to mention to everyone who they're coming in, even if we are allowed to go home, but maintain the social distancing, maintain the physical distancing, maintain the actually practicing the wearing the face mask. Even though you are here, but you came from outside, I can say that our country did not or do not have the community transmission, and you are neutral in this community, so we request that you maintain a social distancing. This is very important. At least about a week or so, if you can maintain the social distancing, will be very helpful.
Travelers expressed their excitement for the reopening of the borders, while some are just happy to have the opportunity to return to their homeland.
I'm glad Dominica is a safe place to be. Going back to New York, I have a job that I've been waiting to get back to, so I am happy to be able to finally go home. I can't wait to come back, but I need to get home first.
The COVID-19 experience, as far as the virus itself, I think Dominica did a fantastic job. Fantastic job. I'm from Florida, and it's terrible there right now. It's frightening to even go there, but you have to go. I mean, you know.
One of the travelers, Mr. Anderson Jolly, commended the health officials for the smooth transition at the airport.
Great job in terms of opening the airport. making sure that we had ease of comfort. Instructions were very, very clear. Everything was labeled so that everybody could read it. The staff was knowledgeable in terms of what to do, where to go. But it's finally a good thing to go home, but it's sad to leave Dominica because many of us know we're not going to a so-called better place once it comes to the viral spread out there. So it's great to, as I say, go, but it's sad to leave, knowing that you're in a safe place and you're well cared for. We have plenty to eat, plenty to drink. We don't have shortages on anything. So, but as I said, great job opening up the airport and getting everything put together.
Mr. Jolly encouraged persons who intend to travel to abide by the protocols put in place as they are for the safety and well-being of every citizen.
Traveling is something that's going to be a new norm for us, and really and truly we're getting new at it. And as you know, things are going to come up, we're going to have to adjust. I don't think people should be scared to do anything, but we should be cautious, make sure we follow all the rules, follow the guidelines, listen to the officials, make sure we answer questions that are asked to us, because they're not trying to steal your personal information when they find out where you live or who you talk to. You know, we have that song that's mind your funky business. But it is their business. Our healthcare is everybody's business right now.
Dominicans are encouraged to adhere to the safety measures put in place by the Ministry of Health as we continue to fight against the COVID-19 pandemic. Octavia Prosper for the Government Information Service.
In more news, Ambassador of the People's Republic of China to Dominica, His Excellency Liu Kun, says the Chinese government is committed to upgrading infrastructure in Dominica. The Chinese ambassador says one of the key projects to be financed by the People's Republic of China is an agricultural complex in Portsmouth. Ambassador Liu says China is pleased to work collaboratively with the government of Dominica and will continue to assist the country in any way possible.
Also, I should have the good news to tell us that China will continue very, very soon to build the agriculture complex building in Portsmouth, in Minister's area. This project is already passed by the Chinese government, and also actually it's on the process of the getting bids for the construction company. So after finish the bidding procession, the Chinese government will send the company to Dominica very, very soon to start this project.
Following the passage of Hurricane Maria, many schools were compromised and in some cases totally destroyed. The Chinese government gave a commitment to construct 6 schools for Dominica. The ambassador says this is a promise that will be kept by his government.
Another very important project is the 6 schools are destroyed by the Hurricane Maria. Also, Chinese government will start its process. And I should say, it also will be begin to build very, very soon, these 6 schools. It's very, very important. And these schools is for the students to study. So Prime Minister Dr. Scarlett himself is very concerned about these projects, especially for the students' schools.
Another major infrastructural development project to be undertaken by the People's Republic of China is the construction of the international airport. Plans were well underway for the construction of the international airport, but were halted by the COVID-19 pandemic. However, the construction of an international airport for Dominica remains a priority for government.
After the COVID-19, the pandemic goes over, I think the Chinese government will send the technical experts came to Dominica very, very soon, because this project is also Prime Minister Dr. Scarlett Valley most concerned about it. So anyway, the Chinese government always will stand together with the government of Dominica. Regard Dominica as a very, very important country in this region. And also the Chinese government expressed thanks to the government of Dominica for your support to the Chinese government.
The Government Housing Loans Board continues its efforts to assist public officers in financing home construction. The main objective of the Government Housing Loans Board is to provide financing through the mortgage facility for all public officers to build decent and affordable homes. Chairman of the Government Housing Loans Board, Mr. Felix Thomas, says over 3,000 loans have been granted to public officers.
We have been operating from since 1957, thereabout, but the Government Housing Loans Board, I can say, really sprung to life with the advent of the new Labour Party administration from 2000. Prior to 2000, the Government Housing Loans Board had given just under 200 loans to public officers, though it started from 1957. And to date now, the Government Housing Loans Board have given well over 3,000 loans to public officers. At the time that we came in, interest rates were at 12 and 10%.
Mr. Thomas says they are now able to give loans to public officers at lower interest rates.
We have been able to structure the finances of the Government Housing Loans Board to meet affordable housing by getting favorable loans, because we borrow from other institutions that were more favorable on lending to public officers. And as a result, today we are able to give loans at 5.5%. In addition to that, we have been greatly assisted by the government to some extent during the Housing Revolution program, where we had an aspect of that Housing Revolution program that was carried out through a facility, a 4% facility, to public officers whose income were that of below $25,000 per month, per year. So we have that 4% facility, to which well over 100 public officers have benefited from that facility.
Following Hurricane Maria, arrangements were made by the board to assist public officers in home repairs.
In addition to that, following Hurricane Maria, due to the difficulties faced by a lot of our borrowers with the underpayment of insurance companies, we were again granted $5 million, whereby we were able to give loans to public officers at an interest rate of 2%. So in terms of making housing affordable, the Government Housing Loans Board have really been the real center of that.
Mr. Thomas says the Government Housing Loans Board is looking to put more measures in place to make the loans available even at more affordable rates for public officers.
What we did following the austerity measures that were taken in the early years of this administration, you know, the history will tell you what our economic situation was at that time. And public officers were seriously affected because their salaries were reduced by some 5%. That's the contribution that they had to make. So the government thought it wise that we should seek the necessary funding to ensure that we could reduce the amount that the public officers who had loans with us had to pay. So therefore, we had not stopped there in reducing the interest rates from 10% to where we are at now, 5%. We are still looking further ahead to ensure that loans are made at a real affordable interest rate, that not some but every public officer that is desirous of having a home built would be able to do so.
You're watching National Focus. More when we return.
Scary. Everything just shaking and making big creaky noises. Earthquakes, big and small, take place in the Caribbean at least 10 times a year.
The dishes rattling and falling and breaking. Then Vonnie started to scream.
All I could think to do was shout, "Get outside, get out!"
Earthquakes, hazards, take control, reduce your loss. If an earthquake hits, what can you do? Get down, get under an item of furniture like a table. Hold on and stay there until the quake passes. Find out lots more about earthquakes and other hazards at your local disaster office. A message from your National Disaster Office and SIDERA.
Welcome back. Following the completion of the $23 million Cochrane Road project, government continues to undergo numerous development projects in the Roosevelt Valley constituency. Parliamentary representative for the Roosevelt Valley constituency, Honorable Dr. Irvin McIntyre, says the construction of housing units are amongst the many improvements which will be done in their constituency.
Right now in Cochrane, although we just mentioned the road, but in Cochrane, we have this pre-Funko house being built. Initially, we had 9 to be built, but because of some little landslide, we're going to get 9 of them being built. And I took a look at them, and they're looking pretty good. They're all hurricane resilient, resistant housing. So that's for the Cochrane. And even next to this, we also have plans of putting some apartments in Cochrane as well. But let alone Cochrane, the entire Roosevelt Valley is going to benefit. As a matter of fact, in Lily Valley in Trafalgar, we have 12 units being built. They should be over within the next 2 to 3 months. 9 of these are 2-bedroom, and 3 of these are 3-bedroom apartments. Because of Mario, and we realized the river close by the water, so we had a little bit of shifting to be done. The foundation was dug deeper as well. So they're all climate resilient. They're 90% done. All that's left is some tiling to be done, and for us to redirect the road. So these are the 2 going on now. But even a few months, even last year, the CMC, Mr. Chris Timmons and I, we visited all the sites in the Roosevelt Valley where we're going to have apartments built by MMC. So we have identified the sites in Mount Prosper, Wharton Waven, Trafalgar, Loda, and even Cochrane as well.
There are also plans for tourism development in the Roosevelt Valley.
Initially, we had a massive plan to build a tourism center in Wharton Waven. And that would have included the vendors arcade and restaurants and booths and shops and even some sulfur pools as well. But in Wharton Waven, we are known for community tourism. And somehow in the plan, it was defeating the purpose to have little sulfur pools there, which would be actually competing with the people from Wharton Waven themselves.
The Roosevelt Valley parliamentary representative says the plans were amended to avoid competing with residents in the community who are local business owners.
We thought, let us just shelve this one a bit and let's come with something new. So what we're going to do in the first phase is to get the vendors arcade, and so we can have washroom facilities so the tourists can be comfortable when they come, and all the vendors, all from Wharton Waven, will have their different stalls. And it's a very comfortable environment and very nice, beautiful area. And then later we can come to phase 2 and phase 3, but we just didn't want the initial one where it would be competing. We wouldn't want the villagers competing with the sulfur pools at that facility that we spoke about. So we're on track with this. Later this year, we'll be starting that program. I think the people are pretty pleased that that's the way we're going to go, rather than to have other people from outside just come and take over those things.
A resource center, which will serve as a multi-purpose center, is also being constructed in Trafalgar.
We wanted it's like incubator. We want to just use it, whether it's in terms of even all our community projects, our different educational projects. It's a community center, come research center, come resource center, come hurricane center. Everything will be there. And the community is really, really looking forward to this.
14 students have successfully completed their journey at the Wesley High School. A graduation ceremony was held on July 10, 2020 to honor the students under the theme, Go the Distance, Stay the Course. Acting principal of the Wesley High School, Mr. Hilarion Akpa, says the determination of the class of 2020 persuaded the Wesley High School staff to change from the initial full virtual graduation ceremony. Mr. Akpa is proud of the 2020 graduates of the Wesley High School and wishes them well in their new endeavors.
Dear graduates, today is about you. It is about what you have achieved. After 5 years in Wesley High School, most of the time under the leadership of Miss Irish, our principal, who I am sure would have liked to be part of this ceremony today. This gathering today would not be possible without the determination and strong will of these young ladies sitting in front of you. They have refused to allow COVID-19 to spoil their opportunity to shine, to spoil their dream of marching in and making their parents proud.
Superintendent Minister of the Methodist Church, Mona Christmas Fraser, addressed the graduates as they celebrated what she described as yet another successful journey for not only themselves, but also their parents.
You are now maturing into your own woman and preparing to take on life as you become adults in a few short years, if some of you are not already there. I want to encourage you as you commence to take on this new chapter, making your advance into the unknown future, to go so under the theme that has been selected for you. Go the distance, stay the course. What is your theme? I can't hear you. Before you go the distance, setting off on the adventure of life, you have to decide where you want to end up so that you may stay the course. Where you want to end up will determine the distance you have traveled.
Lasil Burnett was recognized as the 2020 valedictorian, capturing subject awards for Spanish, physical education, social studies, office administration, principles of accounts, electronic document preparation and management, English language, geography, and integrated science. Ms. Burnett also received awards for most outstanding student, deportment, diligence, and perseverance. She also received the Principal's Award for Outstanding Achievement and Diligence. Ms. Burnett encourages graduates to remain headstrong and always think positive.
Working hard and putting the Almighty Father first in everything we do eliminates the need for luck. However, without persistence, the way in which you develop as a person and how successful you become will be severely affected. When life throws circumstances at you that are uncomfortable and difficult to deal with, it is important that you tell yourself, I will persist, I will succeed. No matter how bad a situation seems in life, it is crucial that you find something positive that you can learn from and grow. As high school students, we usually find shortcuts around everything that we think is hard. Unfortunately, this sets up the expectation that everything in life can be achieved without hard work, if you can find a shortcut. This is most definitely not the case in the real world. The sooner that you accept that hard work requires you to get yourself out of your comfort zone, the more prepared you will be to face life head-on.
Ajani Rossi, the 2020 salutatorian, captured subject awards for biology, Caribbean history, food and nutrition, mathematics, and principles of business. Rossi also bagged the Leadership Award and the Caribbean History Department Excellence in Historical Studies Award. Ms. Rossi is grateful for the opportunity to say what she defined as the most important words. Thank you.
Thank you to the principal and staff for all your persistence in work in shaping us into positive young ladies, into the future leaders, teachers, doctors, lawyers, engineers, etc. Thank you for your unwavering patience and dedication to this profession, for sometimes having to fill the role of mother or father, counselor, pastor, doctor, especially the support received during the COVID-19 in preparation for upcoming CSEC examinations. I personally would like to give special thanks to Mrs. Carbon for always being there for me, having my corner in every matter, for not allowing me to give up and for keeping the pressure on me to always perform at my best. To Mrs. Stevens-Edwards, patience is beyond you.
Other subject awards for English literature, French, and religion went to Shamanda Ishmael. Miss Ishmael was also awarded a religion award. Adele Joseph was named Sportswoman of the Year. The St. Mary's Academy has won the 7th Annual Rotary Club Literacy Quiz Competition. The finals of the competition was held under the theme, Building Strong Communities Through Literacy. On Thursday, July 9, 2020, that's the day the finals was held, the finalists included the Convent High School, Dominica Grammar School, St. Mary's Academy, Isaiah Thomas Secondary School, and the Portsmouth Secondary School. Director of Youth Services at the Rotary Club of Dominica, Ms. Rosalind Sorrento, announced the winners of the competition.
The winner for the maths results goes to Isaiah Thomas Secondary School with 55 points. Do you have a prize for them? Overall winners, we have in second position, Portsmouth Secondary School with 205 points. First place, we have the Dominica Grammar School with 230 points. And our winner this year for our quiz competition is the SMA with 255 points.
President of the Rotary Club of Dominica, Mr. Delbert Paris, says that despite the restrictions of COVID-19, the club was happy to be able to host the finals.
This finals was supposed to happen a number of months ago. For those of you involved, you would know that it was supposed to happen in March. It's something that, as you heard, we've been doing it for 7 years. We do it every year, and we really get a lot of pleasure from doing this. And because it benefits everyone involved, particularly the students. And we're a bit bummed that we may not have been able to have it because of the environment or health situation, COVID and all of that. But working with our sponsors who stayed on board, working with the Ministry of Education and the Ministry of Health, we're here today to allow the students who worked extremely hard to practice and to prepare for this quiz.
And now for your weather update. Wind instability is expected to produce cloudy spells with scattered showers and a slight chance of isolated afternoon thunderstorms across the northern and central portions of the island chain from tonight into Saturday. A trough system is expected to generate an increase in showers and possible thunderstorm activity across the island. Isolated moderate showers could also result in localized flooding. People in areas prone to flooding, landslides, and falling rocks should exercise caution during this period. Slight to moderate seas are expected during the next 24 hours, with waves peaking near 5 feet. And that's all for this edition of National Focus. Be sure to follow GIS Dominica on Facebook, YouTube, as well as on Twitter. You can also drop us an email at gis@dominica.gov.dm. From all of us here at the GIS News Production Team, I'm Darrell Titt. Thank you for watching.